author MCOM presents 6 Steps to a Great Photo. Here's your host, Austin Countryman.
Thanks for tuning in. Today I will be teaching you 6 major things to pay attention to while behind the lens that will take your photo from good to great. I've come up with a phrase to help me remember the 6 key elements while I'm taking photos. First off, the F is for framing. Now framing, it regards the outside of the photo. It's kind of like cropping, but you don't want to do that in Photoshop later. You actually want to do that while you're taking the picture. Because, for instance, if I did not do the proper framing, then I may have cut off his legs, I may have cut off his hands here. So you really need to frame it, and you need to give some breathing room here. Okay? Second, the S stands for subject. You will always have a subject. Whether the subject is defined or undefined, you will always have a subject in your photo. The subject, like this, is just a pretty straightforward subject. Obviously, the subject is this girl. An example of an undefined subject would be something like a field of grass, and there may be a fly on this blade of grass, or there may be a bush over here, or a tree over there, a fox running, but that's kind of an undefined subject because you kind of let the audience pick the subject of that. It's more about the scene and someone being able to pick it out. And that will bring us to the next one. B is for background. Background is something you really need to pay attention to when you're taking photos. This is a pretty good example of background. Obviously, we have just a straightforward white background. And the white background, it doesn't take away from the photo. You really want the photo to be about the subject. And so the background can't be too distracting, and it really needs to boost the subject so it won't be overpowering. It could vary depending on the photo, such as if I was taking a picture of a UT Tyler president, I wouldn't want a messy room in the background. But for, let's say, like a UT Tyler student, a messy room could boost the statement because it's a college student that's kind of messy. But yeah, you don't want to overpower. You don't want the background to overpower the subject because it is about the subject, unless for some reason you're taking a photo and it's more about the background. But you also want to pay attention to, let's say you are taking photos and there's some trees behind you. You want to make sure that's not coming out of the subject's head. You just need to really pay attention to stuff like that. And we will move on to V. V is for viewpoint. The viewpoint is really where the photo is taken from. It's probably one of the most overlooked elements of photography. There's various different viewpoints that set your photo back from everyday life. For instance, you could stand on a chair to get a different viewpoint rather than just everyday life, just pointing at something from eye level and shooting there. But in this photo, what happened is the viewpoint, I got down on the ground, I actually laid on the concrete and I set the camera down on the concrete to get kind of a dog's viewpoint because I was taking a picture of this dog. So so you really need to keep that in mind. It helps tell the story. And your viewpoint's really gonna help your photo. For instance, if I just taken this photo, just walked up on this dog and just took the photo right then, it just would not have been the same. Okay, we are about to cut to a commercial break, and I will be back and I will tell you the last 2 to the 6 key elements of taking a great photo.
Living a healthy lifestyle is very important for children, and simple healthy snacks can be made in just a few seconds. Spread peanut butter on apples for a quick, healthy snack. Getting enough exercise is also important for being healthy. Playing on the playground for an hour a day is a great, fun way to exercise. Exercise can be fun.
Welcome back. Before the break, I showed you 4 of the 6 key elements to taking a good photo, and I will continue with the 5th. The 5th, as I've already written up here, stands for moment. Moment is really about that single moment that you're capturing in the photo. The moment could be something like this. This girl was dancing and kind of going crazy. She was just having a good time. It just so happened this instant that I took this photo, it turned out very good because she's got the good posture and everything, and you can see the emotion on her face. It's better than just a posed shot. So you really want to capture the moment, whether the moment be this, or for instance, if you're shooting a wedding, then your moment might be the big kiss. I mean, that's a very important moment to capture. Another example might be if you're taking engagement photos, and you've got the couple, they're looking into each other's eyes and they both are just smiling, they're locked in, they're focused on each other. That's a good moment right there because that really helps tell a story. And that brings us back to our last key element, L. L stands for lighting. The lighting can be controlled or it can be natural lighting, but it can really have a drastic effect on the photo. I'll come back to this photo because I thought the lighting was very good. We did have a light on the background, which we spoke about the background earlier, but we wanted a white background, but we didn't want it to be just solid white, so it looked more like a Photoshop document. So it kind of has like a grayish tint in some areas just by the positioning of the light. And the lighting on her, it's very drastic. If I didn't have that light shining directly down onto her, it probably would not have the same effect on this photo. But also, just from the positioning of the light on her, it really helps define the shoulder here. So you can tell that, you know, it's a human being and it's not just solid black here. So you really want to pay attention to the lighting. And if you're out on the field and you have to use natural lighting, and by natural lighting I mean, you know, just the sun, you'll really want to pay attention to shadows. That's another key thing that you'll want to pay attention to is shadows, because you don't want shadows over here. You don't want shadows behind them. You just need to pay attention to shadows and lighting. So I will run back through these just to make sure you haven't forgotten. The F is for frame. You want to make sure that you frame everything correctly. Subject, like I said, you're always going to have a subject, whether it's defined or undefined, and that's the main point of the photo. And B is for background. You really want to pay attention to that background. Make sure it's not overpowering the subject, because like I said, the subject is the main part of the photo. It's really what you want in the photo. And V is for viewpoint. Get those different viewpoints. I mean, lay on the ground, kneel down. Don't just get directly just standing up and take a picture, because it's just going to give it that much more effect. M is for moment. Don't forget that moment. You always want to get that really good moment, and it shows that your shot was not necessarily posed. Whether it was or whether it wasn't, if you get a good moment, then it will really help the photo. And lastly, the L is for lighting. Like I said, lighting, you just want to make sure that that you've lit everything correctly, and that comes to shadows as well. Just pay attention to the lighting and the shadows. Another thing about the subject is that you really want a strong subject. That more so goes for the defined subject, because you know what your subject is. You really want a strong subject, so it will boost the photo. Otherwise, if you don't have a strong subject, then it may not be. If you use all 6 of these key elements, just make sure your photos will have an extra wow factor to them. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join me next week.